Okay, we're recording.
Good morning. Good to see all of you. I'm going to give our introductory remarks. This hearing of the New Mexico Department of Health Medical Cannabis Advisory Board will now come to order. I would like to welcome you to the public hearing to review petitions requesting the inclusion of medical conditions or diseases to the list of debilitating conditions currently eligible for licensure under the Medical Cannabis Program. Pursuant to notice, this matter is being heard this 7th day of September 2018 at the Harold Reynolds Building. The time is approximately 10 a.m. I am Dr. Laura Brown. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Chair of the Medical Advisory Board, and I will be managing the hearing today. Department of Health Assistant General Counsel Chris Woodward will be advising the department in this proceeding. This proceeding is being held in accordance with the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act, Sections 26(2)(b)(1) through 26(2)(b)(7), NMSA 1978, and regulations at NMAC Title 7, Chapter 34, Part 2. If members of the audience have not already done so, please sign the attendance sheet located at the entrance of this auditorium. Okay, so we have an agenda. And I'd like to go through that. I think people probably had opportunity to pick up a copy of the agenda in the back. Yes? No? Okay. All right. So first of all, I'd like to say welcome again. And I wanted to give a little bit of background getting up to speed with today. The Medical Cannabis Advisory Board had hoped to meet May 11th, 2018, earlier this year, but the hearing was canceled due to a lack of quorum, which is defined as at least 3 members. And once, thanks to the recruiting efforts of Medical Cannabis Program, this meeting has been rescheduled for today. I'd like to go around this table since 3 are new and have everybody kind of introduce themselves and say a little bit about what your professional experience with medical cannabis is, and quite frankly, why you want to be on this Medical Cannabis Advisory Board. So, who wants to start?
I'll start. My name is David Woog. I'm an anesthesia-based pain physician at... Good morning, my name is David Woog. I'm an anesthesia-trained pain physician at Christus. I'm part of the pain and spine program there. My efforts to learn about medical cannabis and to implement therapy and mostly the pain population is really exciting and challenging. I think there's a lot of opportunity to help people. I say this with respect to the opioid crisis here in New Mexico, and I'm happy to be part of this and consider your petition.
Thank you.
Rachel Goodman, I'm returning member and just got my reappointment. I'm an OBGYN here and now at Christus. And I have been on the board for 2 years now and continuing to learn more and more about the issues. I'm passionate about alternate uses of medications for different ailments, especially pain and the issues that face New Mexico.
And I am Chris Calder. I'm a neurologist at the University of New Mexico, where I've been for the last 6 years. I have particular interests in peripheral neuropathy and in headache, hence my interest in medical uses of marijuana. I also am interested now with the use of the clear indication of epidiol for another derivative for seizure disorders. So I think it's becoming a sort of increasingly exciting area. Obviously, we lack a lot of research. I think more research and more consideration of this is very important.
Thank you. I'm Laura Brown. I've been on the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board since 2013. And I am the family medicine representative of this board. I focus on addiction medicine. I've been focused on addiction medicine these last 9 years, provide medication-assisted treatment, and focus on co-occurring disorders and substance use disorders across multiple organizations in the community.
I'm Dr. Baylin Schwartz. I'm a board-certified physiatrist, physical medicine and rehabilitation, and I have a subspecialty in pain medicine. I'm a returning member. I've been on the board, I think, since 2014. And currently, I'm the medical director of Heritage Hospice. So my interest initially started in the management of pain, and it has branched into the end-of-life care. And so there's my interest in medical cannabis.
I'm Annette Fontaine, a board-certified hematologist-oncologist. I work at New Mexico Cancer Center in Albuquerque and have been there for the last 13 years. So treating patients with cancer, they have a lot of symptoms related to their diagnosis as well as the treatment, chronic nausea, vomiting, pain, and the list goes on. And a lot of them, of course, use opioids to manage their pain. And I have been interested in medical cannabis to assist patients in controlling many of those symptoms: nausea, vomiting, peripheral neuropathy, pain, etc. And that led to my acceptance to become part of the board.
Great, welcome to all of you. That's very exciting, and again, a major shout out to the Medical Cannabis Program for recruiting our 3 newest members, and so that we could have this public hearing today and have another one by the end of this year. Okay. All right, so proceeding with our agenda, we're at number C for those of you who are following along, and it says we're going to cover the actions of the Secretary of Health on previously submitted Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendations from November 3rd of 2017 and previous public hearings on the report that was submitted by the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board February 14th of this year, 2018. So in case you all haven't heard, 10 months after the last Medical Cannabis Advisory Board meeting, Secretary Gallagher issued her report yesterday afternoon on the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board report that I submitted on behalf of the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board on February 14th of 2018, almost 7 months ago. So I'd like to summarize, has everybody heard this already or not? No?
Yes.
Okay. To summarize, number 1, Secretary Gallagher, quote, declined to adopt, unquote, the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendations to add opiate use disorder, substance use disorder, eczema and psoriasis, muscular dystrophy, and Tourette's syndrome. Number 2, Secretary Gallagher also declined to adopt the full Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendation to add sleep disorders and obstructive sleep apnea, but did approve obstructive sleep apnea to be included as a medical qualifying condition. Number 3, Secretary Gallagher adopted the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendations to not include polymyalgia rheumatica, dysmenorrhea, cystic fibrosis, post-concussion syndrome, and traumatic brain injury, diabetes mellitus, and, quote, all forms of arthritis, unquote, in the list of New Mexico medical qualifying conditions. As chair of the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board, I am deeply troubled by the Secretary's report from yesterday. Her report only references information from the submitted petitions, not from the 20-page Medical Cannabis Advisory Board report that was submitted that included important references from the medical literature, medical analysis, and medical review criteria used to justify Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendations. So some might say at this point, why even have a Medical Cannabis Advisory Board when its research, analysis, and recommendations are ignored time and again? Why not just have the petitioners approach the Secretary of the Medical Cannabis Program directly? Well, we do know that the existence of a Medical Cannabis Advisory Board is in statute. So it's really clear to me that there's no meaningful dialogue between the Secretary of Health and the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board. Not once has she reached out to the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board to discuss our recommendations. It appears that the Secretary of Health has never sought to understand the medical literature references that were presented in the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board report. Here is the Secretary's concluding statement about her decision to not adopt the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendation to add opioid use disorder to the list of medical qualifying conditions. Quote, "Opiate abuse and dependence are serious issues in the United States, and they are of great concern in the state of New Mexico. While I share the advisory board's concern about opioid use and its costs, I cannot say with any degree of confidence that the use of cannabis for treatment of opioid dependence and its symptoms would be either safe or effective, and I therefore decline to adopt the advisory board's recommendation regarding opioid use disorder." Why is this statement troubling? First of all, it refers to opioid use disorder treatment, which is not in the spirit of the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act. The Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act from 1978, as I mentioned earlier, specifies the use of medical cannabis to allow the beneficial use of medical cannabis in a regulated system for alleviating symptoms caused by debilitating medical conditions and their medical treatments. Thus, medical cannabis is not expected to treat or cure the medical condition, just alleviate symptoms. Secondly, the Secretary's statement neglects any specific mention of the devastation of opioid use disorder for individuals, families, and communities in New Mexico, especially opioid overdose deaths. I just returned from a National Addiction Medicine Conference last week, and the U.S. Surgeon General reported to us there that almost 200 people die of drug overdose each day in the United States. And since the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board was submitted in February of this year, 3 states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York, have added opioid use disorder as a medical cannabis qualifying condition and or mention it in relation to opioid use disorder stemming from chronic pain. Here in New Mexico, we remain in the top tier of drug overdose death rates in the country, with 500 deaths in New Mexico in 2016, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Opioid overdose deaths are obviously prominent, although other drugs are often involved, including alcohol. It is clear to me that New Mexico politics have trumped science and compassion again. The spirit of the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act has been ignored, to the detriment of New Mexicans suffering from the many diverse medical qualifying conditions recognized through the U.S. and 30 other states' medical cannabis programs. I remain committed to the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board work, and quite frankly, already look forward to working with the new New Mexico gubernatorial administration, which respects medical expertise and honors the spirit of the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act. So that's what I have to say about that. We certainly can take public comment as usual at the end if people haven't signed up and want to comment on any of this. So for now, let's move on with the agenda and get a medical cannabis program update, because it's robust growth and they're doing great work.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I turned it off.
Nope, you turned it off. How about now? Hello? There we go. All right. Good morning, everyone. So I have brief updates this morning. One of the things, patient enrollment continues to grow. So at the end of August, we had about 57,700 patients and about 7,300 personal production licenses. I'd like to mention that our health educator, Jenna Burt, has set up a table back there with some patient material that has been developed. There's lots of materials that have been developed over the past year, so if you'd like to stop by on your way out, please take a look at those materials. The one other update that I have is pertaining to dispensary locations. So we have 81 operational dispensaries in 20 counties right now, so that's an increase. Our license and compliance team continues to be very, very busy. And in our license and compliance team, we have added a new position since we last met, and that's an environmental scientist. Mr. Kevin Luxworthy has been with us for about 10 months, I believe. And I know that in the last forum, there were questions about testing results and the department's role, possible role in removal of results or deletion of results. And so we did look into that with our software vendor, BioTrack. they've assured us that there's no way we can do that. Like I said the last time, and I would testify to that in court, that I wasn't aware of any access that the agency had to go in and manipulate that kind of data. And so we did reach out to BioTrack and have had conversations with him about that doesn't exist. We continue to work with that software vendor on improving the system overall. So just like to shout out to all of our wonderful staff, very dedicated, committed group. We're averaging about 21 to 22 days right now for processing patient applications. It is very busy, so the time has increased a little bit, but we're doing everything we can. They worked overtime last night. They'll be working overtime not this coming Saturday, but a week from Saturday. And so I really can't thank them and the group here today enough for all of their work and commitment to continue growing the program and to just doing some quality assurance measures.
Thank you, Kenny. The program is doing an incredible job, very efficiently. And I think when we met in the spring, I was most impressed, as I've heard this again from you more recently, about the number of pieces of mail that come through the Medical Cannabis Program office every day. What is it, 600?
It ranges from 150 to now 800. So one day we received 800. That's not a norm. Mondays tend to be our busier day.
So that's an incredible amount of work right there. Thank you for that update. I guess the only thing I would add to this in terms of following up with the environmental scientist would be whether we would want a kind of an update or a presentation from him at some point in the future. If people would like that, would that be helpful? Certainly, that's something that we could consider putting on the agenda for next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'd be happy if we
Great.
could just get
Put it on the
maybe
agenda?
some specifics about what we're looking for and
Absolutely.
try to formulate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving right along here, we're at number E, letter E, I suppose. The petition from the public. This is the 2018-001 petition to add autism spectrum disorder. So basically, we have received one petition to review, and a little background. This condition's been petitioned before with a Medical Cannabis Advisory Board recommendation to approve, which the Secretary of Health declined. So I'm just checking in, is there any public testimony for this petition today? I think what would be super relevant and helpful would be any updates from previous autism spectrum disorder petitions, since I know at least 2 of them were submitted by the same organization. Is there anybody here to provide that testimony?
Just as an update, I forgot to mention that Mr. Barker won't be here today.
Okay.
But he said if there are any questions, we can help.
Okay, great. Any other public testimony?
I'll speak on it. Ginger Brighter, New Mexico Medical Cannabis Patients Advocates Alliance. I'm also a parent of 2 children with autism. And I just want to reiterate, we have, the Alliance now has pediatric advocates that we brought on board because we have so many pediatric patients in the state. The UNM, we received word that Dr. V. Hill at UNM has received go ahead to start looking for children to put in a study for autism and cannabis, but we're going to have to he's going to have to currently look at the children who are already enrolled in the program and find ones with a dual diagnosis, because we don't have children with autism in the program because the Secretary of Health will not sign off on it, even though you, ladies and gentlemen, know best and have requested that she do so previously, and we have thousands of parents in this state who are waiting for their children to be able to at least try medical cannabis to see if it will help their children. Barring all of this, our Secretary of Health in her wisdom has decided that it's okay to take our, was it $3-something million Penny that the program made last year, and use the money for the state of New Mexico, but not honor our board and their work. I'm sorry. Thank you from all of the patients and from the Patients Alliance for what you do. Thank you. Those are the updates that I have. I wish that we had more.
You're welcome. I'm realizing I didn't attend to my procedural matters blurb that I'm supposed to read, so my first day as chair. I've already flubbed up big. Okay, so I'm going to read this. Procedural matters. We will proceed with the hearing by considering each petition, which we've already been doing. Applicants have been informed in advance that their petition would be heard today. The petitions have been redacted to protect the confidentiality of the applicant. However, applicants were informed that they may speak directly to the board, Medical Cannabis Advisory Board, if they request to do so in advance. In the event that any applicant has made such a request, the board may go into executive session to hear the individual applicant. Only those confidential issues related to the applicant's health status may be discussed in a closed meeting. If we do go into a closed executive session, which we will not be doing today, I will ask that any person who is recording this hearing using any form of recording device, please take that device with them when they leave the room. I remind those giving testimony today that this hearing is being recorded. Before you speak, as Ginger did, please state for the record your full name and whom you represent. After each witness has testified, I will permit the members of the board to question the witness. Any witness who wishes to submit evidence with their testimony may do so when they are recognized to testify. At that time, those exhibits will be numbered and entered into the record. The board will begin by accepting statements from petitioner applicants only, which again may take place in the closed executive session, followed by those persons who applied to submit technical evidence relating to the petitions presented. The board will accept comments from members of the public later in the meeting after the hearing of the petition. Public comments should concern the petition that's pending or the condition that is being applied for. When we get to the public comment stage, we will ask that you please limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we have time for everyone to offer their comments. And so I think at this stage, I want to give members of the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board time to ask or discuss the petition that was submitted. I know Andrea has provided us all with a fresh paper copy of it. It was also submitted or emailed to us in advance as an attachment. Any comments?
Hello. I would say that I appreciate the petitioner's diligence. It was a very good petition as far as providing a lot of information about studies that have been done and about states that have already adopted this condition for inclusion. I know overall we know fairly little about it, autism spectrum disorder and medical cannabis's role. But likewise, I think we know overall very little about other accepted conditions as well. I found that the data was promising for symptomatic treatment. Most of the data presented was preclinical studies, observational studies, but 2 trials are in process, and that's helpful. There's certainly nothing else that we have for autism spectrum disorder symptoms, and I believe overall medical cannabis is safe. There is a question of early childhood development, which balances out potentially some of the benefits. It's been approved in 7 states so far. So I guess I'm going to vote to approve it as a potential condition that may benefit people with autism spectrum disorder.
Thank you. I'd like to add from my review of the literature last night, there are in fact seven states: Pennsylvania, Delaware, Michigan, Georgia, Louisiana, Minnesota, and Illinois. Illinois was the first state to add autism spectrum disorder in 2015 to their list of medical qualifying conditions. In addition to the 7 states that Belen and I have mentioned, California, Florida, Oklahoma, Oregon, Massachusetts, and Washington, D.C. Give a physician discretion to approve any debilitating condition as determined by the patient certifying physician. So just to be clear about that. I had tried to reach my fellow new board members quickly before this meeting to go over what I look at in terms of petition review criteria. And I want to share that with you guys in the spirit of inclusion. I certainly do my own literature research coming into these hearings. I look at what other states may already have that particular medical qualifying condition approved. I look at the quality of the petition itself. I look at the adherence of the petition and to the spirit of the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act. And finally, I try to compare the use of medical cannabis to existing pharmacological options regarding safety and efficacy. And if we think about autism spectrum disorder, a lot of them have a lot of adverse effects, right? Whether it's benzodiazepines to quote unquote calm people down or deal with their anxiety or even their insomnia. These have a lot of risks, including overdose and death. And I believe that medical cannabis represents a much safer option to deal with the symptoms of this debilitating condition, autism spectrum disorder. So anybody else want to comment?
I was recently at a meeting sponsored by the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine. It was a neurology update. The chairman of neurology at Cornell and New York University spoke about a lot of things. And when I asked about the link between cannabinoids and autism, the endocannabinoid palmitoyl ethanolamide has shown great promise in helping alleviate some of the inflammation and some of the symptoms of depression in this population. That was the best evidence that I found or was referenced at this meeting. So with review of your petition, and I was not aware that this was approved before, I would heartily support inclusion of the autism spectrum in this discussion.
Great. Any other comments before I would entertain a motion?
You know, I think as a neurologist, am concerned about brain development and the studies that have shown in relatively normal people that exposure to cannabinoids does retard brain development up until age 25. I want to put that out there just so we know we've considered that information. But I think for this sort of disorder, it's always a risks-benefits issue, and these are incredibly difficult problems to treat. We do not have good treatments, and I think we should make this available.
Either of you guys have any comment? No? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I can make a motion
I can second it.
to vote about, it's a vote, to vote about it?
So it sounds like Dr. Schwartz would like to make a motion to add autism spectrum disorder to the list
Thank
of
you.
medical qualifying conditions for the state of New Mexico, and I second it.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. So that passes with a vote of 6-0. Great. Moving right along, I think we're ready for the public comment unless the program has anything else that they would like to present. Andrea is the amazing mistress of ceremonies for the public comment section. Thank you, as always.
Alright, sorry folks, this went a lot faster than I thought, so I didn't have this available. I'm not used to these. I'd sing a song, but I care about you all too much. So generally, folks, those that haven't been here, we'll call 3 at a time, and then just go in order. So Joseph Gonzalez, Jessica Haley, and Larry Love. So Joseph?
I'll pass.
You'll pass? Okay. Jessica, Larry, and then Nick.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, especially to the new members of this group and to returning members as well. It's great to see so many full chairs and so many wonderful women doing great work. My name is Jessica Halai. I work with the Drug Policy Alliance, and I am primarily just here to express in public my dismay with the Secretary of Health's decision. And I share the thought that perhaps things will change under a new administration. I think it's just absolutely gut-wrenching and horrendous that we don't allow this statute to be implemented as it is supposed to be, and compassion should be what drives the decisions. I know you guys know this. I won't belabor the point much longer, but I just think it's tragic and that more people will die because of the decision to refuse to add opioid use disorder and substance use disorders to the qualifying conditions. I believe that I speak for Senator Jeff Steinborn and Representative Ferrari, who both sponsored memorials in their houses of origin in the legislature last year, urging the Secretary to act in a favorable way on this recommendation that was made last November in expressing this dismay that I have. I don't have many words this morning because I'm still digesting the issue, but thank you all for serving, and I look forward to meeting those of you who I haven't had a moment to speak with yet. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Larry Love. I'm a patient advocate, and advocate for the program, and I've been standing up here for 8 years complaining about the same things. 70% cap hurting patients, costing them more money. I look very forward to a new administration and new people running this program. I think I should congratulate Andrea and Chris and Kenny for doing the bidding for their bosses. Susanna Martinez said that she would shut this program down if it would to reach her desk a bill to do that. They treaded water for 8 years. We have 60,000 patients, no plan count. Medicine is too expensive because of that. So I wish the current administration good luck with their new jobs.
Thank you, Larry.
Good morning, I think. Still. Thank you for our new members to the Medical Cannabis Program Medical Advisory Board. I really appreciate your commitment and your work to this because it's not an easy job. My name is Nat Dean. I live in Santa Fe. I've been a patient in the program since the second year of the program. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor. I have chronic pain and unremitting nausea, a number of other comorbidities that go with that. But I'm really pleased to report today, after 35 years of a head injury, that I am no longer taking any narcotic medications. And many of you have heard my story before that. When I came to the program, I was on 27 medications, of which I think of those, fentanyl, oxycodone, Oxycontin, Vicodin, morphine, synthetic morphine, all at the same time, all from the same physician, because nobody could figure out what to do with what was happening to me. And I still have chronic pain, and for some of you, I'm a bit shorter right now. We don't know what's going on with me, but I'm having a lot of physical weakness and stamina issues. But what's really wonderful about I'd say kind of a re-entry into a medical model that I really didn't want to have to re-enter again, because the last 10 years I've been able to function very well, is this time I'm not doing it with traditional pharmaceuticals. And I'm really proud of that, because that's a brave statement to make. when you're going to your physicians, especially ones that may be the right ones to help you, but might not yet believe in medical cannabis as a tool. So the dispensaries joke with me and say, we never see you hardly ever, and that's because I don't need to use very much. I spent the month of May in Washington, D.C., 4 hotels in 3.5 weeks. It was there was a lot to work on. One of them was working with Americans for Safe Access, which is safe access to safe medicine. And I highly recommend this group because there's everything that they do is based in evidence-based research and science and medicine. And I brought some materials for the board, and you can either choose to distribute them to the Department of Health, because I don't know if they have them or not. The campaign this year was End Pain, Not Lives. And in May, it was 91 people a day dying. This was printed, I think, a month before our event. 91 people a day were dying in America. I just heard you, Dr. Brown, say it's 200. This is crazy. So it's not just opioids. It's a lot of other things. What I also brought was a document, Medical Cannabis Access for Pain Treatment, a viable strategy to address the opioid crisis. And the Medical Cannabis in America, Medical Cannabis Briefing Book. Thank you very much for your time. And the other thing I want to say is, when will we have patient representation on the Medical Cannabis Medical Advisory Board, since we are the medical patients in the medical program? Thank you.
Thank you, Nat. I think to answer your final question, as you probably already know, it would take a statute change. So we'll get on it, okay?
Yes.
Okay, our next 3 speakers, Christina Cox-Hayes, Ginger Greider, and David Valdez.
Hello, I'm Christine Cox-Hayes. I live here in Santa Fe, just moved here a couple months ago from Louisiana. I just would like to talk to the board about bringing, and I don't know if this is the right place, bringing medical cannabis into the school systems, allowed to be used in the school systems. My own son has panic attacks, and he just needs a CBD vape pen when he has those panic attacks. And if you see him, my boy, when he's on the ground and he's chewing on his whole everything, you just give him 3 hits of CBD vape pen and he's totally fine. But they won't let him take that in school. But we are allowing him to have CBD drops, so it's actually really reduced the amount that having the panic attacks. But I know there are some people out there who are having some real struggles with their children who really need the medical cannabis, and they're not allowed to bring it into the school systems. So I would just say maybe that's going to be a petition I'll work with some other people on to bring to the next meeting. But thank you so much for listening, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine.
Wow, that was graceful.
That was a lot. The last 2 got me kind of teary. And I have stuff I want to say. I bet you can't imagine what I'm going to talk about. Ginger Greider, I'm still a patient advocate for the New Mexico Medical Cannabis Patient Advocates Alliance. And I'm really kind of upset about what our Secretary of Health did, guys. I heard about that on the way up here and was very confused because we were at the last meeting and then we didn't have all of you wonderful new ladies and gentlemen who have joined. And thank you again for joining our board. Thank you. We know that you all are volunteer and we appreciate your service so much and your dedication to medicine and trying to find out what's going on with all of us and how you can actually help us, because we wouldn't be here if your profession had served us wonderfully and it all worked like it was supposed to. So we're kind of lost and we're kind of hurting, and we thank you for doing your part to help us and to look into this new, it's not new since it's been here since the beginning of the world. This is one of my problems with people and their problems with cannabis is I know you all know, being bright individuals that you are, that we've had it since the beginning of the world, and it's safe and it's fine, or we would know, like hemlock or everything else that we know that we can't have collectively as society, that it's dangerous. We have endocannabinoids in our breast milk, sir, when you were asking about neurology, and brain development. I mean, that's kind of hard to, when you think about that logically, to kind of. Anyways, I'm so disappointed in the Secretary of Health. I'm disappointed in the system. I'm disappointed in everything going on here today, because we can't move forward because of the choices that she's made, and I hate that it makes you feel. I hate that you said, why would we have it? But because we're here, that's why we need you guys to be on our board, and we appreciate you, and we thank you for all you do, and I'm sorry that we don't have a representative government today in New Mexico. We should, because that's what we were promised as a country and as a state, that we would have a representative government, but obviously our Secretary of Health decided that she was an emperor today and was going to just unilaterally decide that she knew what was best for all of us without your public comment or commentary or participating in your government for the people, by the people, is not happening in New Mexico today for medical cannabis patients, and I am sad about that. Thank you for your time and your dedication.
Thank you, Ginger. I would add, as previous Medical Cannabis Advisory Board chairs have mentioned, that if you are upset or angry or frustrated or feeling insulted about this, please contact your legislators, because they do listen, they will hear, and don't forget to vote in November.
Hello. My name is David Valdez, and I am a patient in the medical cannabis program, and I'm also the owner of NM Brief Relief Cannabis Health and Wellness Center. And I wanted to introduce myself to the new board members, just to let you know who I am. We at Brief Relief have been assisting patients by connecting them with doctors, cannabis friendly of course, educating them and assisting them throughout their treatment. We have been helping them since 2010, when there were just a little over 1,000 patients on the program at the time. We have 2 offices in 2 different cities and looking to open 2 more in 2 other cities. Just to give you an insight on how many patients we speak with and how many people we send away because they are not qualified, like individuals with autism, which you're trying to approve today. This would help so many people and families, and I thank you for that, for approving it. I also want to mention that I have a teenage child that is on the program, which the doctors tried to give Prozac and Abilify to. She's just a normal teenager, and she's fine. She's on the cannabis program now, and I have a big problem with treating her while she's at school. So that is definitely not only myself, but a lot of our patients. We have dozens and dozens of adolescents that are on the program that have the same problem. And edibles is the only thing that she takes, and so it wouldn't be hard for the school nurse to administer her 1 edible during the day that she needs. They administer medications all the time to children, and I don't think that would be too much of a stretch to do. I just also like to mention, as the whole medical cannabis program issue evolves, that we ensure the integrity of our program, especially as recreational creeps around, and that we as patients retain our statuses as patients, and we don't get lost in the mix. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Okay, MJ Diaz, Monique Chavez, head of maybe, and Leonard Salgado.
Hi, I'm MJ Diaz. I'm a marketing specialist from Rooted Earth Strategy. I'm here to support Ginger and her endeavors, not only with her children. I think it's extremely important that testimonial-wise, she's not only an advocate for her children, but for all children in New Mexico. And as a high-impact media specialist and relations and community relations builder, I think it's important that the story is heard, and testimonial-wise, and the good work not only of what the committee has done, but the testimonials that we're hearing right here in the room. And it's those stories that's going to change the stereotype and the opinions all the way from the top down. So we got to take it from the root up. And I just wanted to share my expertise with everybody. So I think it's important that we get this out in the media through community relations so that it's heard right from root. And I have my contact information if anybody needs help in formulating any of those press releases or community relations communications.
Thank you,
Thank
MJ.
you.
Monique? You're gonna pass? Okay. Leonard Salgado?
Good morning. Hi. I just wanted to also express my gratitude for the new board members that have volunteered their time and energy to really make a difference in this program. You'll have to silence that phone, sir. I just wanted to ask a quick question, and really I'm asking this on behalf of a very, very dear friend who has a son who has been diagnosed with autism for a number of years now. But his and I just got this from his mother, and I just want to ask the question. His autism is oppositional defiant disorder. Okay, so in what you all unanimously agreed to include, would that be included? Would his particular condition be included in that?
I don't think so. I mean, it's obviously often associated with autism spectrum disorder, but it is a separate DSM-5 diagnosis, and so as such, it would be a separate diagnosis. It's a good question, though.
So if we wanted to, we would actually then have to wait for the next meeting to, to petition that specific disorder.
That's right.
Is that right?
And just a reminder, petitions, I mean, I'm jumping the gun a little bit here. Sorry to use a word like gun. But anyway, our next meeting is hopefully December 7th, Friday, December 7th, 3 months from today. So if you, I mean, that's 3 months from now. And so you could petition to have that be presented at that meeting. All petitions and supporting materials need to be submitted at least 30 days in advance to the medical cannabis program.
Right. Again,
You can submit them earlier.
the date again on that?
Friday, December 7th.
December 7th.
Just remember 7. September 7th, December 7th.
December 7th. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. What else did I want to say? I think that's it. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Leonard. I would also add, I neglected to mention at the beginning when we introduced ourselves that as amazing as it is to have 6 of us sitting here as opposed to 3 or fewer, we are still experiencing 2 vacancies in the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board. By statute, we still need a board-certified physician in infectious disease and in psychiatry. So anybody who has any thoughts about that can go through the program, certainly, and they are vetted through the New Mexico Medical Society before being presented to the Secretary of Health for appointment.
Madam Chair, members of the committee and the audience, I just want to announce this. There's a study going on at UC San Diego School of Medicine Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research involving physicians, scientists. It's quite robust, but they're looking at CBD interacting with or altering neural activity and to see if it effectively and safely alleviates some of the more problematic symptoms of ASD, such as aggressive behaviors, repetitive or self-injurious behaviors, hyperactivity, and social and communicative defects. So I hate that word defects, but I'll share this. I'll send this to your
That'd be great. Thank you.
And then anybody else who wants the link to it, I'll be happy to share it. But it's a really exciting study, and it's really well funded, and it's in the United States, and it's evidence-based, which is where all medical research has to land and make sense to people here.
Thank you.
Okay, last 2 speakers we have signed up so far, Marshall Reich and Tisha Brick. Did I get those names right?
I'm like a fish out of water. My name is Marshall Rich. I'm a board certified general surgeon, so I don't qualify under your rules for being on the board, but there are a couple of things I would like to mention. I don't know if this is the meeting where we should do this or not, but the first thing is that I don't know where we start with introducing the possibility that people who are addicted to other medications can use cannabis to get off those medications. And I understand from the conversations that have occurred so far that there is a route that we can try and do this again to see why we can't get people off of heavy drugs and onto cannabis. I see you shaking your head. Do you have any comments about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that important issue. I included references in the Medical Cannabis Advisory Report, which I submitted February 14th of this year, which support the notion of cannabis being an exit drug as opposed to a gateway drug. And I think that's what you're alluding to.
Exactly.
And there's a growing literature of studies that look at cannabis substitution for other substances. And there's long been a robust literature of opioid sparing effect, where when people who are using, in particular, prescribed opioids are also using cannabis, they use less opioid. That's what's known as the opioid sparing effect that many of you may be aware of already.
Yes.
All of this is relevant to what you talked about, and that was a large part of the basis for the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board at the time to recommend the addition of substance use disorder to the medical qualifying condition list here.
How could you recommend to me that I could lobby in favor of this?
I mean, it hasn't, I mean, I guess repetition with substance use disorder for the next meeting. And as we all know, there will be a new administration. We don't know what it will look like at this point, but there will be a new administration, and so potentially there's opportunity to have conditions, medical qualifying condition petitions that have been declined by the Secretary of Health to be approved by Secretary Gallagher's successor. So I urge all of you to consider repetitioning the Medical Cannabis Advisory Board for other medical qualifying conditions that are deserving to be on the list of New Mexico medical qualifying conditions.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to ask this board committee to take a few moments to allow me to raise awareness of a very important issue, if that's okay. My name is Tisha Brick. I'm a caregiver for a pediatric patient on the medical cannabis program who is also my son. His name is Anthony Brick. My son has been a successful patient on the medical cannabis program with a qualifying diagnosis of PTSD for almost 4 years now. Prior to becoming a medical cannabis patient, my son was stuck in a harmful and unsuccessful revolving door cycle of going in and out of mental institutions and being prescribed harmful pharmaceutical drugs, which only hindered his quality of life. Once I was successful in having my son being given the opportunity to try medical cannabis, the results were immediate and positive. My son, for the first time in his life, was actually able to live and function like a normal person, and he has not gone backwards ever since. Medical cannabis and the medical cannabis program are critical to my son's ability to remain in his community, critical to my son's ability to function in places such as school, and critical to him being able to have quality of life altogether. Today I'm here to address an issue that affects not only myself and my son, but all others just like us across the state of New Mexico. This issue is although that we are legal caregivers and or patients toward this program, which the state has legally set in place for us, the program is flawed. The Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act is supposed to exist to protect caregivers and patients on the medical cannabis program. Yet it is being used as a sword against patients and caregivers to allow discrimination and restrict the necessary administration of and use of medical cannabis in places such as schools and hospitals. My son has been unable to attend his elementary school for well over a year now, which has had a detrimental impact on both of our lives, and he cannot attend any other public school due to the fact that the schools across the state claim that they would lose their federal funding because cannabis is federally illegal and they claimed that they would be breaking state laws as well as due to the laws stated in the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act by allowing the administration of cannabis on school property. This is a statewide issue that affects many families, including my own. I recently held the state's first public due process hearing before a state-appointed hearing officer and the New Mexico Public Education Department to address for the first time the issue of public schools prohibiting medical cannabis on school property. A decision hasn't been rendered yet. However, there were several comments and questions raised by many in the hearing, including the hearing officer, in which regards the current laws and the program in place for the state of New Mexico regarding the cannabis program. Among those comments and questions were whether or not the Department of Health was responsible for enacting change towards this issue, whether or not lawmakers were responsible for enacting change towards this issue, or whether or not the Public Education Department was responsible for enacting change towards this issue, or whether or not a court of law was responsible for enacting change towards this issue. I have reached out to almost every lawmaker in the state on every level for almost 2 years now, including our current Congresswoman, whom which today I brought some documentation regarding her concern on this issue as well, if you'd like copies. And I have been told that no resolution has been reached. I have inquired to the Department of Health, the state of New Mexico, and the New Mexico PED, only to be sent in a circle with no resolution. I am here today asking that this issue be made record of, that this issue be taken seriously, and that some relief and resolution be given to all patients and caregivers alike on this program who are also experiencing any issues of discrimination and restriction, so that this program, which we all pay money towards and participate in legitimately, may be as fully beneficial and as fully effective as it was intended to be when it was set in place over 10 years ago by the state of New Mexico. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tisha.
Okay, there's nobody else signed up. Does anybody else desire to make a comment at this time? Okay, public comments are closed. Thank you.
Is there anything any of the board would like to discuss? Any further announcements before we close? On our agenda, we have the adjournment and the next public hearing date, which, as I've mentioned already, is Friday, December 7th, 2018. Does that still work for everybody? Great. So if there's no other comments, I'll go ahead and give closing remarks. The advisory board would like to thank the witnesses who participated today and those who provided written comments. The audience is reminded that the recommendations of the advisory board will be submitted to the Secretary of the Department of Health for final determination. Applicants will be notified within 10 days after the Secretary makes her determination. And I think with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Someone else can do it.
Yes.
Who knows?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second? All in favor? All right, I think we're finished. Thanks so much. I really appreciate everybody coming out on a Friday morning, as always, and appreciate your passion and commitment to medical cannabis here in New Mexico.
And I want to say the same thing that you said to the new members and returning members. Thank you for joining this board and returning the board. It's very necessary, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Larry.
Do you all want to set a date for the Journal Club now, just a week before?
you missed
So
that.
we were talking about
possibility of